You are listening to the Will Power Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to reveal the secrets that have led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you say your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast. How's it going, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I am the host of your Willpower Podcast. Today, we have an amazing, incredible entrepreneur that's also based out of the Florida market, and her name is Laura Barnes. And Laura is actually a performance coach for top-level entrepreneurs and athletes all over the country, and she's doing an amazing job with the people that she works with. Her company is actually called Leadership Beyond Sports. So it's an absolute honor to have on here, and also her expertise. I met her actually probably a month ago now down in a conference that Tommy Whitehead actually hosted. And if you guys remember that name, he was actually a guest on our podcast also a while ago. So first and foremost, Laura, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Will. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I remember we got a chance to talk down in Tampa, and I loved everything you're doing. Obviously, it's super cool to meet someone that works with top level entrepreneurs and really just helps them get to that next level in their life and in their business, which is so crucial to their ultimate success down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
But starting off, I want to ask you a question I pretty much ask all of my guests, which is, first of all, what makes you want to come on podcasts like these and really share your story and let people get a chance to know you?
I think podcasts are, they're fun. There's something for everyone on podcasts, right? If you look at the list of what's out there, everything, whatever you're into, whether you want to admit it or not, there's a podcast for you. So I think it's great in that sense. I think I have a ton of friends who have ascribed to, podcasts during their daily commute. So I think it's a great way to maximize your time, learn new things in the process. The reason I want to be on podcasts and kind of share my message is just because I think that there's so much in the performance coaching space. Meta performance is what I do. And a lot of it is mindset related, so having the opportunity to share that with somebody, whether they're watching video, listening to the audio, it can resonate, it can land. And I think it's just a great opportunity to share your message with a larger audience, in a simple way. And it lives on forever, which is awesome.
It does live on forever. It leaves a legacy,
Yes. Good,
And
bad, or otherwise, it's going to be there for a while.
Yeah, right. It'll always be there.
Yep.
And you're definitely in a very interesting space. Obviously, like I said, it's a lot of mindsets, a lot of coaching, which is really interesting for kind of people just go into that space and really help out other people in that space as well. It's so crucial. But what is your background and how did you, get to this point? Why'd you want to become an entrepreneur in the first place?
Yeah, so my background is pretty diverse, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that same, like they've dabbled in a lot of things, they've tried a lot of different avenues. And so I'm no different in that sense. But the things that I've done in my career have been, hospitality. I worked in private service, so I worked in people's private homes for a while. I've worked in education and higher ed. I was even an Uber driver for a while. And so the things that I would say, like the through line for me has always been service and support of others. Really putting the needs of another person ahead of my own in a lot of cases. My work was really focused on enhancing the lives of the people around me. And that's really, I took on different jobs and tried to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it really came down to, I loved helping people. And I always have. It's always been something that I just get a lot of fulfillment out of helping people. And when I got my first sort of certification was in Myers-Briggs. So I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner, and I was doing that in an education space, providing that for students who are coming through the school that I worked at. And facilitating those conversations and seeing their aha moments where they're like, oh, that's why my wife and I keep having these challenges. Like, I'm an extrovert, she's an introvert, or I like hard data and she likes more of the, imaginative space. So having those moments and seeing people have those like aha light bulb moments was really exciting for me. And I kind of tapped into that. Like, how can I do more of that? How can I help people have more of those moments where they learn something about themselves or they learn something new that's going to completely, change their perception of themselves, the world around them, what's available to them. So I would say that's really the Myers-Briggs was sort of my launching point. And
Yeah.
then taking that on and, doing more in business training and coaching. And then the Meta Performance Institute and getting certified as a Meta Performance executive coach has really kind of tied the bow on all of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that as well. You said you're service oriented and you really just want to see how you can help people, right? And ultimately, that's
Mhm.
what led you in this career path, which is awesome. And real quick, before we go on to the next topic, I just want to talk about something that I have personally been trying for the last couple of days and weeks. And this is something called Magic Mind. And what it is it really has been giving me a boost of energy and also has really helped me just become more focused and dialed in during the day. I was never a big fan of coffee. So I really wanted to give this a try. And I tell you what, I am just absolutely blown away by how focused and concentrated I feel after I take Magic Mind, this product. And I just feel fantastic during the day. And so if you guys are also in the same boat where you're not loving coffee, you want to feel more focused and not just have a shot of energy, a burst of energy, but you also want to get more focused on top of it, then I think you guys should definitely check out Magic Mind. I'm going to put the link in the bottom of the episode that if you can go to click on Magic Mind, go check it out. Go place your order with them. And also use the code MindGrowth20 and you can get a 20% discount on your order. So again, the code is MindGrowth20. I'll also include that in the notes of this show. But I tell you what, ever since I've been using it, I felt amazing. I feel more focused than I ever have. And also it gives you a boost of energy that you need to go out there during your day. I think a lot of people they have that in the back of their mind in their heart, like I want to do good, I want to go out there and make an impact, a positive impact for people, but I'm really not sure what space to get into, right? So kind
Mhm.
of just left stalling and not really sure like where to go, what direction to take. But I do want to touch on your Myers-Briggs certification. I know you mentioned that was kind of your launching point. For people that haven't done one yet, do you mind touching on what that really is and kind of what's so important about taking the Myers-Briggs assessment?
Yeah, so it is from my perspective, and it's been a long time since I got the certification, but it's sort of like the granddaddy of personal assessments. It's based on Jungian typology, so it's been around for a very, very, very long time, and it's really what a lot of the other things like DISC and bunch of different personality assessments are sort of they were built on top of Myers-Briggs or from sort of the foundational elements of that. So basically what you do is you take an online assessment. I think you can go to like 16personalities.com, which I have no affiliation to and get no credit for. But it's a free personality assessment. So you can go on, answer questions, and it gives you a 4-letter code at the end, which tells you a little bit more about your personality in terms of the way that you perceive the world around you, the types of information that you relate best to, how you make decisions. So it's a really great kind of foundational element. Anybody who has never taken a personality assessment, I always say start with Myers-Briggs because again, it is sort of the backbone of personality assessments from my understanding. They may have changed that mantra in recent years, but that's what I was always led to believe. And it's again, it's a great tool to just learn more about yourself. Shouldn't be the end all be all. Should never be the thing that you were like, well, I can't do that because I'm an introvert, and that's a thing that extroverts do, right? It shouldn't be the thing that you use to limit yourself, but it can be a really good way to build more awareness about who you are and kind of how you relate to the world around you.
Yeah, I think it's a super important tool. And I'm always surprised about how many entrepreneurs I talk to, especially business owners, that haven't taken it. I'm like, you need to learn more about yourself so you can also build your company the best way possible, right? Because everyone's going to have their own strengths, their own weaknesses. And so it's
Mhm.
important for you to realize what your weaknesses are so you can put people that have strengths in your weaknesses, right, on your team.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I mean, really, all of the personality assessments that are out there have some level of that. And I
yeah,
think it's great for leaders to have these as a resource, not only for themselves, like for knowing what their strengths are, but also understanding the strengths of the people around them and being able to say, like, oh, that's why my COO is like that's why we always butt heads because we see things very differently. So having that sort of core understanding can help you develop communication skills. It can help you develop in a lot of different areas that really will benefit your business. One of the things that I think is common in businesses, like do what you're great at and then like hire people to do the other things, like hire people to do what they're great at. But until you know what you're great at and can identify your weaknesses or where other people could really support you, it's kind of hard to do that.
yeah. I can definitely see how that's a really great starting point, launching point for you, especially in your career, going towards performance coaching for entrepreneurs. So after that, I know you mentioned, and especially now you're doing, you're technically called a meta performance coach. So you want to dive a little bit deeper on what that technically means and what are you primarily delivering for your clients? What can they expect to get from working with you?
Yeah, so meta performance coaching works a lot with high performers who are asking themselves the question, what's next? The challenge that we see with a lot of high performers is that they are the best at their game, they're the top of their field, whatever that might look like. And there's kind of that fear of like, okay, well, I'm the best. Like, where do I go from here? Now what? And so meta performance invites them into the question of what am I capable of, as opposed to simply how can I be the best? How can I beat the guy next to me? How can I outdo what I did last year? So
Mhm.
it's really that question of what am I capable of? And so meta performance coaching is about expanding your awareness of what's available to you. We do that. It's a three-pronged approach. So we always start with a vision. So something that is exciting to you, the thing that like lights you up and gets you motivated, and you are just like so amped to go after it. That's the vision that we really anchor into. And then from there, clients create strategies. And so I'm not a consultant, I'm a coach. It's really like you're an expert in your life, you're an expert in your business. So my role is to help you get clear on what your strategy is. Like, why does that strategy, why do you think it'll help? Why do you think it'll get you there? What are some things that you want to like, how would you measure it, right? How would you measure success of a strategy? And then as a client starts working towards their strategy, there tend to be some mindset things that come up, right? We have our limiting beliefs, we have the stories we tell ourselves, we have limits that we put on ourselves as far as what we think we're capable of. So my role as the coach is to help you question those things and to push past them in some cases, to really experience what you are capable of. So that three-pronged approach is vision, strategy, and mindset. And really it's in pursuit of asking yourself, what am I capable of, and what's possible if I just try.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you're working with these people that are obviously, at the top of their field already in perspective, I mean, you talk about strategy and vision. I mean, you going over like what's your 10-year game plan? What are your goals for like the next year? Or what does that strategy and vision really entail for this business that really are already successful?
Yeah, so vision is again, we start with the vision, and it's really like if we I'll ask you the question because this is how it would go in a vision call. So Will, if you and I were to connect next year at Tommy Whitehead's next event, right, the Building Success Summit in Tampa 2025, and you're like, oh my God, Laura, I cannot, like, that podcast that we recorded, that vision call that we did last year was the thing. Like, it was the tipping point. I'm so thrilled about what's going on in my life, what's happening for me, the things I've accomplished, the things I'm working on. Like, I am lit. What would that be for you? So that's where we start with vision, is like, what would be absolutely thrilling to you just 1 year from now?
Yeah.
And, so depending on your answer, we play with it, right? We get a little bit bigger, a little bit more expansive. But that's really the vision space. And then strategy, once we get into the coaching world and we're really digging in, like, okay, strategy is sort of like goal setting, right? So like, all right, your vision is there anything that comes up for you? We'll just get out of curiosity, like a year from now, what would be absolutely thrilling for you to have accomplished?
Have my podcast be a top 10 entrepreneurial podcast that's out there. I think that'd be a pretty.
Okay, so the Willpower Podcast is a top 10 entrepreneurial podcast. So if that's what you want to have accomplished in a year, I'm curious, like, how many listeners do you want to have for the podcast?
Monthly, probably 50,000, 100,000.
All right, so there's a big gap between 50 and 100,000. So which do you want? Do you want 50,000? You want
We'll do
100,000?
100,000. We'll shoot high. Yeah.
All right, 100,000. So you have 100,000 monthly listeners to the Willpower Podcast. You're in the top 10 entrepreneurial podcasts on all platforms, or how does that rank? How do you guys measure that?
It's all platforms. Yeah.
All platforms. Okay, cool.
Aggregate.
Yeah, so once you lock in on that vision, of course, in a real vision call, we go a lot deeper. There'd be a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
But we would really anchor into like, all right, what do you think is going to get you there? Like, how are you what's a strategy that you might employ? So what comes to mind for you when you think about a stepping stone or something that you might try that you haven't tried yet? Maybe you've been holding back on it that you think could move the needle, getting you closer to that vision.
Yeah, I think definitely hiring a professional marketing team where their niche is online podcast promotion and different things along those lines.
Okay. Cool. So that might be a strategy that you would work towards. And again, like we would dig into how do you think that's going to get you there? What's the ROI? What do you need to, like, what's keeping you from doing that right now? Right. So like those would be the questions that we would ask. And so taking when I'm in a coaching relationship with a client, we're meeting weekly and they set commitments. And so, they'll say, in every session they come in and, we follow up on commitments from the previous session, but they also answer questions leading into it that helps them kind of like laser focus on the coaching work. And one of those questions is like, what's a nuclear action that you could take this week that would move you closer to your vision? So that if that was a strategy that you set or a commitment of like, hey, I want to reach out to like, what's a nuclear action that you could take if you wanted to hire a marketing team to help you promote your podcast?
I guess we're talking this week. It'd probably be doing research for other top podcasts and see what they're doing, see who they're working with for their promotional items.
All right, cool. And then just to kind of play with it a little bit more, specificity is really important when it comes to your vision. The more clear and specific your vision is, the easier it is to like grasp onto. So it's same thing for strategies and commitments. So if you were to research it, how many would you want to research?
Say top 10. Top
Okay.
10. Yeah.
So you're going to look at the top 10 entrepreneurial podcasts, how they're marketing, what companies they're using to market it. Great. And then again, in a coaching session, we would also say like, by when? By when are you going to get that done? Because that's your commitment. And that's the thing that as your coach, I help hold you accountable to, right? So how many are you going to do? By when are you going to do it? And what's the like real clear action that you're going to take?
I love it. So it's definitely a very streamlined approach. And it sounds like you're definitely reverse engineering what's going to take, starting out with the end goal and, working your way back there to see what's going to take to really take those next steps to get there.
Yeah. And I mean, it really like tapping into the fact that you're an expert in your life, right? You're an expert in your business. I don't have a podcast that I'm trying to market, so I can't give
Yeah.
you advice on that necessarily, but I can hopefully ask you some questions that are going to get you closer based on what you already know. And sometimes it's like we know things, but we just don't want to admit it to ourselves. So we're avoiding answering our own question. But when there's somebody else here to like bounce ideas off of, you're kind of like, all right, well, Laura's asking me the question. I guess I'll answer it.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing you mentioned as part of your process is you really dive deeply into mindset and overcoming limiting beliefs. And so I'm just curious from your vantage point from the clients that you're working with that are, entrepreneurs, and from the outside looking in, it seems like a lot of these people are already successful, right? They have it all together, but in reality, it's not the case. They all have sometimes they have the limiting beliefs. They don't have a strong mindset yet, and they're all going through their own issues, right? So from your perspective, what are some common, mindsets that you're seeing that are just wrong, and just what are some of these limiting beliefs that you're also seeing that you're trying to help them overcome?
Yeah, I want to say, like, I want to clarify when it comes to the coaching space, like one of the things I tell all my clients, whether it's a vision call or a coaching call, like there's no judgment, right? There, like we try as much as we can to not attach right, wrong, good, bad to a decision, to a concept, to a mindset, right? Because we all go through it. And so it's like, you're gonna probably spend enough time judging yourself and making yourself right or wrong for what you're doing. Like I'm not here to do that for you. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to any of these things. Like there's one of the things that we talk about is like a limiting belief might be, I don't know, what is there a limiting belief that you have around why you're not a top 10 entrepreneurial podcast right now, or why you might not get there in a year?
Um, Limiting belief. I don't know, is time management a limiting belief that
Yeah,
that
I'm not good at managing my time.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. No.
Yeah, so that's a limiting belief. And we also call that a racket. So one of the things like in a racket, we would say, all right, so the chronic complaint is I'm not good at managing my time.
Mm.
And so we would work through that in a session to say, like, okay, well, when you are believing that you're not good at managing your time, what are your associated behaviors and beliefs? Right? Like, what are you saying to yourself? What are you thinking about yourself? How are you behaving to like if I were a fly on the wall observing Will poorly managing his time, what would I observe? Right. So you get to get
Yeah.
really clear on what that looks like for you. And then we talk about the payoffs because we keep those rackets around, we keep those limiting beliefs around because they're serving a purpose. So continuing to believe that I'm bad at managing my time, it allows you to miss deadlines. And you're just like, oh, well, it's just because I'm bad at managing my time, right? Or whatever it is, like there's a payoff
Yeah.
that you don't have to take risks. You don't have to commit to things because you might not be able to fulfill them or whatever it might be, right? So we dig into that. And then we look at the other side of it, which is what is it costing you? And we get really specific on the cost. So if the cost is lost financial revenue, right? If you're not making money because you're continuing to believe this story, we get super clear, like how many dollars and cents are you missing out on as a result of not doing this thing? It might be costing you, sometimes it's quality of relationships. Sometimes it's growth in your career, right? It could be any number of things. And so when we get clear on the costs, it makes it a lot easier for a client to go, wow, like that story and me telling myself like I'm bad at managing my time, actually not helpful. Like let's find a way to not think that anymore, not believe that anymore, which sounds
Yeah.
kind of silly. But yeah, so that's one of the, like I would say time management is a limiting belief. Your question is what other limiting beliefs and mindsets do people have that can hold them back? Some of them I would say are I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't know enough yet. I need to take another course, I need to get another degree, I need to learn another skill.
Mhm.
I think a big one for entrepreneurs is I have to do everything. I have to know how to do every single thing in my business, otherwise it will fall apart.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to overwork, burnout, all those types of things. But I would say those are probably the most common. But yeah, some variation of those tend to come up with a lot of clients.
No, it definitely makes sense. I think a lot of times too, like you're mentioning, people understand they have this limiting belief, but even though they understand like the detriment that it's doing to them and their progress in their career, like they still just can't make that switch to kind of let
Mhm.
that go and move on. So, like, I'm sure you know this, but like, what do you do with these clients to help them really make that transition away from this limiting belief into a positive belief, right? Like, how do you actually have them make that switch in their life?
Yeah, I think it's a little different for everyone. Some people, when they literally see it on paper and they're like, oh, well, I'm being absolutely ridiculous about this. Like, I'm just like, it's a process too. Like, it's not something, it's not going to be like a magic pill I can give you that by tomorrow you're no longer going to have this limiting belief. It's going to come up for you.
Yeah.
But really, what we talk about is like, what's a strategy that you can employ to overcome it when it does come up? Right? It's similar to like dieting. If you say like, oh, I'm gonna, cut down on desserts, and
Right.
then a massive piece of chocolate cake shows up in front of you, you're like, well, what strategy am I going to use to not eat the chocolate cake when I know I want to eat the chocolate cake?
Right.
Right. Or like, how am I going to overcome the lack of motivation to go to the gym? Well, I'm going to pack my gym bag and I'm going to have everything in my car and I'm just going to go straight there after work. I'm not going to let
Yeah.
home first or whatever. So we really work through, again, it has to be a personal strategy for you. So as the individual who has the racket and the story going on, you're the only one who's going to know like what's going to shift you out of it. So we would tap into what are some strategies that you can employ, what are some steps you can take that when you notice that coming up, because once you're aware of it, you can't be unaware of it anymore,
Right.
right?
Right.
So once you know that it's there and you've gotten really clear on it, you're like, oh, that's my racket playing again. Okay, cool. All right, I know that I say I'm bad at time management, but I'm actually going to do X, right? I'm going to take 10 minutes and plan out the rest of my week, or I'm going to sit down and write my to-do list. Like whatever it is for you that's going to help get you back on track so that you can quiet that racket. And then it gets quieter and quieter and quieter over time. But it really is about consistent effort and the strategy that you employ that you know will work for you, or you think will work for you at least.
Right. And I think it's important too to realize what situations you're putting yourself in that makes you want to go into that lapse again, right? Being unproductive, for instance, or wanting to eat something that's not healthy for you, right? So I think that's
Mhm.
also important. I was like the saying, if you don't want to drink, don't go to the bar, right? So it's the same
Right.
concept where if you want to break a habit, don't be in positions where you're naturally your mind's going to like, okay, I'm going to do this now, right? You got to break that habit, make new healthy habits that'll obviously help yourself, be more productive and
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about really makes me think of like being proactive versus reactive, right? So like, yes, there are going to be times where we have to react to what's coming up and what's happening for us.
yeah,
But being proactive, right? If time management is something you struggle with, then like, how can you set yourself up for success at the beginning of your week, at the beginning of your day? What can you do proactively to try to avoid the situation happening in the first place? And then when it does happen, what strategies can you employ in the moment to correct it as soon as possible, as opposed to like letting it completely derail you. And then you're like, now I suck at life because I mismanaged my time today and I'm a failure at everything, right? Because that's
yeah.
tends to be what happens. We kind of go down that rabbit hole of all the other negative thoughts that come along with it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you mentioned, just important to break that. But I
Yeah.
want to jump into your story here a little bit. So I know obviously you're in the coaching space, you have your own coaching business. I'm just curious, how saturated do you think the coaching space is, and how do you really differentiate yourself from other coaches that are out there and really make your own stamp and make people really want to come in and get coached by you ultimately?
Yeah, we saw a huge boom in coaching during the pandemic
Yeah.
for a number of reasons, which, depends on who you talk to as to why you think that happened. So huge coaching boom. And I think it really comes down to how I differentiate myself is one, the meta performance space is different from a lot of other coaching. So, your general life coaches, and different types of certifications, there are plenty of certifications out there, and there are different styles of coaches for different people for sure. So meta performance coaching, I believe, is very unique in that three-pronged approach of the strategy, mindset, in pursuit of the vision. And again, we anchor into vision a lot. And I think the things that make meta performance coaches different is, really there is that belief, like we have coaches, we are coached by other coaches. I always say, like, you probably shouldn't hire a coach who doesn't have a coach of their own,
Yeah.
because we're not perfect. We are experts with the tools. We are not, experts at uncovering all of our own stuff all the time. We need somebody to help us see our blind spots. So that's a big
Yeah.
piece. I would also say that the thing that differentiates me working with entrepreneurs, and especially in the athlete space, I have a background in athlete development. So I understand the athlete life cycle. I understand what's going on for athletes as they're dealing with, training and personal life outside of it, and professional endeavors that might not be on the field. So just a different perspective and awareness of the challenges that come up for them. And I also think that because I was not a professional athlete, I bring a different perspective as well, right? Like it's great to have a coach who understands your industry. It's also great to have somebody who brings an outside perspective. So I would say that those are the things that differentiate me. My just, again, education, knowledge, background, the time that I've spent in that space. When I was a grad assistant in my sport management program, I tutored student athletes. So I spent a lot of time in the rooms helping them with their academics and really getting a good idea, a good sense of like some of the mindset challenges they were dealing with, obviously at the collegiate level, so a little different than the pro level, but
Right.
really just having that understanding and awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's gotta be so rewarding too when you see someone, right, you can help them out and you actually see their progress and see where they're at like a year from now when they actually take your advice and listen to it. And it could just completely transforms their life, right? Which is huge. But at the same time, I'm certain there's also people that you work with that don't take your advice whatsoever, and then it's just kind of like you're leading horse to water. They're just not drinking it, right? So, okay, so
Yeah.
have you had both of those situations? I'm sure pop up.
Yeah, well, and really, again, in the coaching space, we look at it like it's not necessarily like I'm not necessarily here to give you advice. Sometimes I will consult, and I always, say, hey, like, do you mind if I consult here and kind of give you my thoughts, feedback, and opinion?
Yeah,
Um, so in those cases, take it or leave it, right? Like again, I'm not an expert in your life. We do check-ins with our clients, which I think is a really cool thing as well. Like it's literally after every session, we're going to ask you like, how are you doing with the coaching? What are you liking? What results are you getting that you're excited about? Is there anything else you want me to know as your coach? So it's really an opportunity for us to like tweak the dials as we go along, as opposed to waiting until the end of a contract for you to be like, well, I didn't get the results I wanted, and I've been coaching with you for 6 months, so no, I'm not going to renew. That's every coach's like not worst nightmare, but it's certainly not a pleasant experience.
right,
So
right.
asking those questions along the way and really like creating a space and a container where a client can be honest and say like, no, I'm not happy with the results I'm getting. I'm frustrated. Like I've had those meltdowns with my coaches where I'm like, I am pissed off, right? Like nothing's going right and I'm so mad about it.
Yeah,
And so the coaching space allows you to fall apart and have those breakdowns. And, certainly there are times where, a client might not meet the goals they set for themselves. And that's, again, we see that as an opportunity. Doesn't make you a bad person because you didn't hit your outcomes. It just means that there's now an opportunity to look at what happened, right? We can almost do like a post-mortem in a way and go like, all right, so this is what you said you were going to do. And
yeah,
then this was the strategy you were using. And this is the outcome you got. And if it's not the outcome you wanted, what happened? And then we can get really real about the feedback and the growth process of saying like, all right, so like I can't do it for you, right? Like I can't come in and run your business for you. I can't come in and manage your finances for you or find new customers for you. So it's not on me. It's on me to help identify blind spots, tweak and adjust as we go.
yeah,
But really it's about like getting real with yourself and having that, being willing to have that conversation and say, oh, I might have sold myself short. I might have been a little bit slippery with my integrity. I might not have done the things I said I was going to do, and therefore I didn't get the outcomes I wanted. So taking like radical ownership in that space, I think is really helpful. But yeah, when clients are frustrated with their results or the outcomes, that's an opportunity to have that conversation. And again, reminding them that like it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad business owner. It doesn't mean that you're a bad friend or parent or kid. Like it just like that happens. And I like to tell people when you're playing full out, when you're playing for big commitments and a big vision, you're gonna have unmet commitments. You're gonna break a commitment
Right.
here and there. So again, how you relate to that is how you grow.
Yeah, and it's so crucial having that kind of accountability partner like you're talking about. But at the end of the day, they still need to be the entrepreneur in their own business and
Mhm.
drive it to where they want to go, right? There's only so much that
Mhm.
you can do, obviously, in your position as that performance coach role. And
Yeah.
to your point, I think so many people, including me, you set really extremely high goals for the quarter, for the year, whatever it looks like. And most of the time, it's a really a stretch, right? But that's what a goal should be. It should be a stretch. And so I think it's easy for a lot of people to not hit a goal, but still get close to it, but not hit it, and not be
Mhm.
appreciative of all the progress they made and just kind of get down mentally because they didn't actually hit that target they wanted to do. That was really such a high goal to reach after, right? But you
Yeah.
got close to it. So it's important to kind of keep that mindset and keep that in sight.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, when we talk about goals and we talk about that vision, we have a concept that we use called the intuitive fence. So that's really the like metaphorical or hypothetical limit that you put on what you think you're capable of. So that big like stretch goal might be just on the edge of that intuitive fence, but like still on the inside. And if it's inside the intuitive fence, it's like, I think I can do it. It might require extra work. It might require extra effort, longer hours, but yeah, I think I could do it. And so when we're playing with vision and we're getting into that space, I actually say, like, what's outside the intuitive fence? What seems impossible for you? That sales goal that you just gave me, add a zero to it.
Right.
That sales goal you gave me, instead of it being a 12-month goal, make it a 6-month goal. Like
Right.
now, how does it feel to say that you're going to hit that goal in half as much time? So playing with that, and then again, you might not hit it, but really what we're doing along throughout the coaching relationship is anchoring into that vision. So we'll come back to the vision and we'll say, hey, that sales goal that you set, is that still the vision? Is that still what you want to hit? Yes. Okay, great. Where are you? Like we talk about what's the vision, right? Where do you want to go? What's your current reality? If your goal is $1 million in sales and you're currently at 5,000 and you're in December, right? Like you might not hit that goal. So getting realistic about the difference, like the gap between your vision and your reality is really important. And having the awareness to say like, all right, that's a pretty big goal. How do I meet it? What are the strategies I can use that would get me there? And sometimes we even say like, you can change the vision. Like it's not my vision, it's yours. You can change it. You can change the outcomes that you're interested in, right? So we do have some opportunities there, but it's like, if you're going to change it, why are you changing it? We'll have that conversation.
Right.
But yeah, like I also say, absolutely acknowledge how far you come, acknowledge the things you are doing, and be really clear about what is working. And are you spending enough time on the things that are working versus toiling away or spinning your wheels on the maybe it'll work, or it didn't work last month, but maybe it'll work this month, right? So having
Right.
that real conversation with yourself to really dial it in.
Yeah. And it's just an important mindset to have. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time, there's got a couple more questions for you. The first question is obviously looking forward for you and your business, and obviously everything that you've done so far. What are some of your main goals that you want to get accomplished in the next couple of years or this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently growing my practice. I'm taking on new clients. Love working with individuals in the athletic space. So I tend to work with or enjoy working with entrepreneurs in the sports space. I also love working with the partners and spouses of coaches and athletes, and athletes themselves. So those are a couple of different areas, as well as individuals who have foundations and nonprofits, especially related to sport, or athletes and coaches who are starting their own nonprofits. Just because I think that those people are purpose driven, right? Like they're doing that thing for a reason. I really want to help them find success and create success in that space. So those are the individuals who I really enjoy working with. So from a client perspective, building my practice, bringing in more clients on that front, that's really kind of where I'm at. And then, I mean, I'd say that's the biggest one professionally. Personally, I would like to do some more travel, would like to, go check out a new country that I haven't been to yet. Haven't decided which one, probably Greece or Italy, but
There you go.
those would be, I'd say, the top professional and top personal.
Yeah, I love that. I think you have a really great niche, especially the people that you're working with. And Greece also sounds wonderful to me. So I love those travel locations.
Yeah.
Before we hop off, then, is there anything else that you would like to say? And if people want to reach you, how can they go about and find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's my platform of choice. So I would love to connect with people on LinkedIn. You can also email me. My email is laura@leadershipbeyondsport.com. So that's laura@leadershipbeyondsport.com. And so I would say either one of those would be the best ways to get in touch with me. So either LinkedIn or an email. And then we can always set up a vision call or have a conversation about what that might look like, or just answer questions they might have.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. Laura Barnes, thank you so much for joining me today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Willpower Podcast. If that's the case, help us spread the message of positivity and simply wanting a better life by giving us a 5-star review. Until next time, have a great week.